The Oakland Coliseum was never meant to be perfect, but it was home, open to the hills, alive with routine, a part of Oakland's soul. Then came Mount Davis, $220 million, thousands of new seats, and a single promise that football would bring life back. Instead, it suffocated everything that made baseball feel real here. How did one concrete wall erase decades of belonging? And why did fans feel the damage long before the team ever left? The answer begins long before the first section of Mount Davis rose into the skyline. Game day at the Coliseum began long before the first pitch. Morning started with the arrival of old station wagons and pickup trucks, coolers packed, folding chairs unfolded, and the scent of charcoal drifting across the parking lot. Families claimed their usual spots, greeting neighbors they only saw in summer. Vendors rolled carts up the ramps, calling out for peanuts and cold drinks, their voices echoing through the concrete tunnels that somehow always led back to the field. Inside, the stadium filled with a low hum. Kids raced to the railings with scorecards in hand, while adults settled into the same faded seats they had held for years. The air moved in gentle currents. A breeze that carried the sounds of batting practice and the distant rumble of BART trains. Some fans swore you could smell eucalyptus on certain afternoons, especially as the sun dropped behind the stands. For season ticket holders, rituals were precise. Meet at the same gate, buy a hot dog from the same vendor, nod to the same usher who had been working section 118 since the 70s. The routine mattered. It was the rhythm that made baseball feel less like an event and more like a habit, something woven into the city's fabric. Kids learned to keep score from their grandparents. Friends gathered in the same rows year after year, passing down stories about wild games and near misses. The stadium was not glossy, but it was alive. Vendors remembered regulars by name. Ushers joked about the best shortcuts to beat the post-game rush. Even on quiet weekday games, there was a sense that everyone belonged to the same small, stubborn community. When the A's took the field, the crowd's energy swelled and settled in waves. The sound of a well-hit ball, the laughter after a foul tip, the shared sighs when a rally fizzled, these things did not need a scoreboard to feel important. There were no luxury boxes to separate people from the game or from each other. The stands were close enough to the action that a child could shout a player's name and sometimes get a wave in return. Vendors who had worked the aisles for decades described the same feeling. The ballpark was never about perfection. It was about knowing what to expect, about the comfort in routine, about the way the day unfolded from parking lot to final out. The Coliseum, for all its concrete and quirks, was a place where baseball fit the city and the city fit the game. From the seats behind home plate, the outfield once opened up like a living postcard. Beyond the low bleachers, the grass rolled toward a horizon painted with eucalyptus trees in the soft blue of the Oakland hills. On summer afternoons, sunlight poured in from center field, turning the diamond gold and tracing long shadows across the infield. The hills behind the wall were not just scenery, they were a quiet reminder that this was Oakland, anchored to a real place and real people. The original Coliseum was never about spectacle. It was about space. The air moved easily from the outfield, carrying the sounds of the city, train horns, wind through the trees, the distant murmur of traffic on 66th Avenue. The stadium's open bowl led in the sky, and with it a sense of possibility. Even on days when the bleachers were half empty, the view beyond center field made the park feel bigger than itself. Fans sitting in the outfield could look up between pitches and see the world outside the stadium. The horizon was not just a backdrop for baseball, it was the stadium's signature, stamped on every home run that sailed over the fence. For decades, this was the heart of the Coliseum's character, a place where baseball met California light, and the game belonged as much to the landscape as to the scoreboard. Photographs from before 1995 show the field bathed in natural light, with the open sky above and green hills beyond. The stadium's capacity hovered around 50,000, but the openness made it feel intimate, not crowded. There was no concrete wall to close off the outfield, no towering deck to cast shadows across the seats. The ballpark felt honest. It was a public space, not a monument. The view behind the center field was more than just a visual detail. It was the Coliseum's invitation, proof that the stadium was not trying to be something it was not. It was Oakland's own horizon, visible from every seat, connecting fans to something larger than the game. That openness, that breath between the city and the sport, became the memory fans would hold on to long after the hills disappeared from sight. Pressure filled the council chambers and spilled onto the front pages. Oakland's leaders found themselves cornered by headlines and deadlines, every story a reminder of what the city stood to lose. In 1994, the absence of the Raiders wasn't just a sports story, it was a civic wound. Local papers ran banner headlines, Raiders close to return, Oakland scrambles for deal, city bets, big on football. The narrative was relentless. Editorials questioned the city's resolve. Radio hosts mocked the empty stadium and the empty promises. Every week brought a new rumor about Los Angeles, or another city waiting to snatch the team away for good. Inside City Hall, officials faced a barrage of questions from reporters and residents. The council's public meetings stretched late into the night, voices rising over the hum of air conditioning and the shuffle of legal pads. Council members spoke about pride, about jobs, about what it would mean for Oakland to lose another franchise. The sense of urgency was unmistakable. They talked about the city's image, about not being left behind, about proving Oakland could play in the same league as San Francisco or Los Angeles. The conversations rarely touched on baseball or on the A's, except as an afterthought. The focus was on the Raiders, on the glare of the national spotlight, on the fear of being labeled a city that couldn't keep its teams. The financial mechanics of the deal became a kind of background noise, complicated, abstract, but always present. Bonds, hotel taxes, lease revenues, the language of urgency. The numbers grew bigger with every draft of the proposal. By the summer of 1995, the stakes had become public record. The city and county agreed to back $220 million in bonds, a commitment that would stretch for decades. Alameda County's board approved the deal by a 4-1 vote in December 1994. The Oakland City Council followed with a 6-2 vote in January 1995. The message was clear: whatever it took to bring the Raiders home, Oakland would do it. On the street, the mood was anxious. Some fans cheered the return of football, waving silver and black flags from car windows. Others wondered what would be left for baseball. Local columnists warned that the city was gambling its future on a single team. But the momentum was impossible to stop. The press wanted action, the council wanted headlines, and the city's fear of losing face outweighed every other concern. The only options left were drastic ones. The decision to build was made under the weight of scrutiny, with the sound of printing presses and talk radio echoing in every corner of the city. The decision to transform the Coliseum began not with blueprints or cranes, but with signatures and a promise written in dollars. In June 1995, the Oakland City Council and the Alameda County Board of Supervisors approved $220 million in public bonds to finance the stadium's overhaul. The official record shows a 6-2 council vote in January, following a 4-1 county approval the previous December. Each signature on those resolutions represented a public commitment, one that would bind the city and county for the next 30 years. The Coliseum Authority, a joint powers body created to manage the stadium, became the instrument for this deal. Their documents, stamped and filed, authorized the issuance of lease revenue bonds backed by event income, hotel taxes, and if those fell short, taxpayer guarantees. The mechanics were complicated, but the intent was simple: raise enough money fast enough to give the Raiders what they wanted. The bonds were structured for a 30-year term, with repayments stretching to 2025 or beyond. Interest rates hovered between 5 and 7%, meaning the total debt service would eventually double the original price tag. The bulk of the money went to construction, most visibly the 3-tiered upper deck that would become Mount Davis. The rest covered luxury suites, concourse upgrades, and payments to the National Football League franchise itself. These were not abstract numbers. The deal pledged future city and county revenues, ticket surcharges, parking fees, and a dedicated slice of hotel bed taxes to cover the annual payments. The fine print included a backstop. If revenues fell short, general funds would make up the difference. That risk was rarely discussed in public meetings, but it lingered in the background. A quiet bet on steady attendance and football-driven surpluses. Official minutes from the Coliseum Authority and City Council meetings show a sense of urgency, even anxiety. Opponents warned of long-term costs and the impact on baseball, but their voices were drowned out by promises of jobs, civic pride, and the return of the Raiders. The bond documents were signed, the money was committed, and the city's future was locked to a project that could not be reversed. What began as a financial maneuver became a physical reality, one that would reshape the Coliseum and Oakland's relationship to it for decades to come. Steel arrived at the Coliseum in late 1995, delivered by the truckload and stacked along the outfield. Crews in hard hats worked through the winter, welding beams and pouring concrete in a race against the calendar. The city had made its choice, and now the evidence grew taller every day. The original bleachers and grassy knoll vanished behind scaffolding. By December, columns rose in neat rows, climbing higher than any part of the old stadium. The open view that once stretched toward the hills was slowly erased, replaced by a framework that promised more seats but offered no way back. For the first time since 1966, the Coliseum's horizon was gone. The sun that used to pour in from center field now slipped behind a wall of rebar and plywood. Workers described the job as relentless: double shifts, constant pressure, the sound of jackhammers echoing through the bowl. Some longtime stadium staff watched from the concourse, remembering the last days before the sky disappeared. One construction foreman, interviewed years later, recalled the moment a steel beam swung into place and blocked his favorite view. He said that was it, the hills were gone. The new structure, soon to be called Mount Davis, took shape in 3 tiers, each one higher and steeper than the last. It was not just a renovation, it was a transformation. The outfield was sealed off, the air grew heavier, and the field felt smaller beneath the growing shadow. Baseball had to wait. Construction noise forced the A's to play their first 6 home games of 1996 in Las Vegas, a detour that made the absence feel even more permanent. When the team returned, they found a stadium changed not by time, but by a decision that could not be undone. The Coliseum's identity, once open to the city and the hills, was now locked behind concrete and steel, its future set in the shape of a football fix that would never fit the game played on summer nights. The transformation of the Coliseum's outfield was more than an architectural project. It was a sensory rewrite. The addition of Mount Davis brought more than 10,000 new seats, stacked in 3 steep tiers, each one designed for football needs, not baseball needs. Sightline diagrams from the period show the difference in sharp lines. Where fans once looked out at the hills, they now stared into a wall of gray. The horizon, once visible from every part of the park, was erased by concrete and steel. Afternoon sun that used to flood the infield now slipped behind at the upper deck, casting wide shadows and leaving the bowl darker, colder, and oddly silent. Vendors remember the change in sound. What had been a lively echo became a dull thud. Cheers from a summer crowd swallowed by the new enclosure. Ushers who had worked the aisles for decades described the distance that grew between fans and the field. The seats in Mount Davis were so far from the diamond that for baseball they felt disconnected, like watching a different game from another building. Even the air changed. The familiar breeze that once carried the scent of cut grass and eucalyptus was trapped, replaced by the stillness of a sealed chamber. The emotional fallout became visible in the empty upper deck. By 2006, the A's front office decided to tarp off the entire Mount Davis section for baseball games, hiding more than 10,000 seats from view. The tarps were supposed to make the stadium look less empty on television, but they became a symbol of what had been lost. Fans joked about the mountain nobody climbed, but the joke carried a sense of resignation. The blocked horizon, the endless rows of unused seats, the cold shadows, all of it became the new normal. Now, as the Coliseum faces its final season in 2024, Mount Davis stands as a permanent reminder of a decision that cannot be undone. Demolition plans list the upper deck as the first to go, but the damage to the park's identity is already complete. The last images of Oakland baseball will show a stadium closed in on itself, the view gone, the echoes lingering, and the story of a ballpark that lost its way when it tried to be something it was never meant to be. Today, the Coliseum stands as a cautionary monument, its blocked skyline a daily reminder that short-term deals can cost a city its connection to itself. As the A's play their final season here, the empty seats and silent concrete echo a truth. When public spaces lose their soul, communities lose more than just a team. Some scars are not visible until the view is gone for good.